Welcome to Who You Were with Patrick Noth and Sebastian Canelli. In each episode, we ask our guests to talk about a time in their life when they were significantly different. Episode 9, Chris Gethard.
I'm an open book, though.
I know.
Yeah, I feel like I am to a fault. Like I'll just
Yeah,
and also to strangers.
Yeah.
I know. It's hard when you're an open book because then you realize I'm opening up to people too fast.
Yeah.
Like I'll meet someone and they just want to chit chat and they'll ask how I am and I'll tell them how I am and they'll go, okay.
See, I'm almost the opposite where I've opened up so publicly that sometimes people will people will honestly walk up to me sometimes on the subway and say oh, I watched your HBO special and I always wanted to thank you because I tried to kill myself 3 years ago and here's exactly how I did it. And it's always very flattering that they feel comfortable talking to me, but there's a certain amount of mental energy
For sure.
where it's oh yeah, I am also a guy who's just kind of try to go home and stop at Dwayne Reed on the way home and go eat something too.
Yeah.
I'm gonna be thinking about that forever.
Yeah, that's always places a weight on you. Every
little
time you
bit.
talk about it, every time you talk about or you almost feel it. I think
People come up to me and tell me about the sandwiches they hate.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's a better route, a little easier mentally route to go.
they're I saw you doing that sandwich object work.
Yeah.
I saw the layers.
Yeah. Oh, please.
So welcome to Who You Were. This is a podcast where we bring on comedians and we ask them about a time in their life where they were significantly different. We're really excited to have this guest today. Sebastian, you want to intro?
Yeah, this is my job. So, did you see how I pass it off?
Yeah. It was Chris Paul to James Harden.
Yeah, and then James Harden always addresses. He goes, "Nice pass, bro."
His job's to pass.
Yeah.
I'll take the shot.
You know him from the Chris Gethard show. You know him from his HBO special he just talked about, Career Suicide. He had a podcast, Beautiful Anonymous, which is such an amazing podcast. Everyone should go listen to that now and then come back to this. Chris Gethard.
Hi.
What's up, Chris?
Not much.
I always feel
Feels
I
weird 'cause
call
we've
you.
been talking.
Yeah.
No, I know. Well, what's the right way to do this?
I don't know. I liked it. It was casual.
It felt weird to call you Chris just now because I always call you Gethard, but I've actually never asked you what you prefer.
I prefer Gethard
You do.
at this point in my life.
Yeah.
Cool.
Most people just call me that. The only people who don't really are my immediate family, my parents, my brother, and my wife. They all call me Chris.
Okay.
My wife made a real point early in our relationship to say, I'm not going to call you Gethard. That's weird.
Yeah.
That's nice.
Made me realize she was the real deal.
Yeah.
But yeah, most people call me Gethard.
Nice.
Yeah.
I like that. I had a bunch of last name friends because everyone's name was either Vinny or Anthony. So
Yeah.
it'd be D'Amato, Amato, but those are so close.
Yeah. it's
There
true.
were all these close last names, but we always called people by their last name. And it's funny because my best friend, everyone calls him Stango, but I just call him Matt because I knew him as a little kid.
Yeah.
And so it's weird when we're in big groups, everyone calls him Stango, and I'll just go, yo, Matt.
So you're pre-Stango.
Pre-Stango.
Yeah.
I have a childhood friend who I named Philitis, and his name is Paul. But everybody calls him Philitis, and his mom fucking hated it. But to this day,
Why'd you call him that?
because I don't know, he was a DJ for me at the time, and I just thought it was a funny name, and everybody started calling him that. It's a fucking insane name.
Yeah, I get why his mom's pissed. That name sucks.
It sounds like a disease. Is that like a disease?
Yeah.
I think phlebitis.
No way.
Philitis.
Yeah, it's insane.
Yeah.
It's an insane name.
Yeah, I feel like part of that is people call me by my last name because it's my last name. But I have always felt like there's a little more to it like that. It just feels a little more like who I am in a weird way. I think people who know me, especially mostly in the comedy world, people just call me Gethard.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I don't think I'm a Chris in the comedy world. I don't think that stuff I do.
No.
It's oh, that guy Chris does that. It's oh, you know, that guy Gethard. That.
Chris is too light.
Yeah.
It's too, a little too.
Yeah, it's a persona. Gethard feels like a persona to me. I mean, it's not fake, but it's that. It feels like
It is an earned
yeah
representation. Well, I remember Anthony King telling me at a certain point that before there was the Gethard show, he would say that people would refer to weird shows. They'd pitch him weird shit and be like, it'll be like a Gethard show. That's part of why there is a Gethard show, is because that's when I was doing like all the paintball shooting shows,
right,
and taking renting buses and taking people to New Jersey on buses and doing shows like in in the basement of the house where I grew up, and just came to represent something to people. So
also I think people who had crushes on each other, I remember like getting together in one show, and my friend Morgan was wound up in a really long relationship out of that show.
Oh yeah,
yeah,
the Lonely Coward show.
Yes,
where you could submit names of people you had crushes on in the UCB community. That me and Catherine Mute on in secrecy, and to her credit, she kept it very secret. Went through and matched anyone. I think we had 3 matches with 3 people. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's beautiful.
Yeah. It also led to a lot of pain and hurt feelings.
Sure.
I'm sure.
For people who it didn't work out for.
Well, that's what love is.
It's also good comedy. It's pretty interesting for a night of comedy. I think. Like show up in this pressure cooker where you don't know if you're going to be matched.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Everyone's on edge, so the tension laughs are coming out.
Yeah, it was pretty good.
That's awesome. I went to one live Chris Gethard show, and it was when Murph shit his pants.
Oh, yeah, that was bad.
The whole fucking theater stunk.
It was really bad. Yeah. It was really bad. Well, because we were doing the thing where we peed in diapers and weighed them. It was the second time we'd done that. This was after we started on cable. We came back. And Murph hadn't been at the first Pissy Pants one because he really got involved at Public Access. And I think it's funny, like, everybody during the current era of the show is like, oh, man, back on Public Access, it was really nuts. And then everybody was there for Public Access. Like, back at UCB, it was really nuts. Yeah. It's that thing of, like, everybody golden ages it.
Sure.
And I think Murph just felt compelled to go big and live up to the legacy of how crazy those shows were. So yeah, he took a shit in his diaper. He was very drunk. And then Drew Johnston it was winter, and Drew threw a snowball at him on stage, and Murph flipped out and reached into his own diaper and flung shit at Drew.
I know.
It was really bad. I mean, if Shannon wasn't in that show, I think we probably would have been banned from the theater.
And the show itself would have been gone.
Yeah, 100%.
Well, that was the last time you did it at the theater, though, right?
It was the last time we did it at the theater. And I mean, to be fair, Shannon and I personally cleaned up Murph's shit.
Sure.
Told the interns, you're not dealing with this.
That's good.
Yeah, that's a good look.
That helped us out, I think.
I remember a parentheses show that I think traumatized me a little bit when Murph
Wait, what happened?
You tell it.
It was terrifying. I mean, I'm interested to hear your perspective as well. This was a class that I taught that had 27 people in it.
Yeah.
And it's funny because I'm tempted to be like, the whole idea was this and that, but there wasn't really a whole idea. It was more like, I think as a teacher at that point, I had a reputation for being someone who would really like get in the trenches with my students. I think people really flocked to my classes for a while because of that. I think everybody knew I liked to experiment. And part of how I like to teach was almost as a counterpoint to how much pressure that the system of UCB could build into things.
Yeah.
How people get so focused on like chasing certain rings. And I was like, let's just get 27 confident people together who seem like they need something and just see what happens. And it was just kind of a free-for-all. It was sort of like anything goes. Like, let's remove all the rules of anything. Like, we had 27 people in the class, but the show would start empty. And the idea was, like, if this turns into a one-person show, it's a one-person show. The other 26 of us watch that night. If it's 5 minutes long, it's 5 minutes long. If it's 2 hours long, it's 2 hours long. Let's not set any arbitrary limits to it. And I forget exactly how it started, but very early in a show, I think the best show I saw, I was out of town for one of them, but I think it was my favorite of the actual performances. Some of the things that happened in the class itself were unspeakable horrors. But Murph basically got on stage, right? And he was like, I've always had this dream. He was like, there were kids in my neighborhood who could do backflips. You'd see them on the front lawn and they could do a backflip. And he's like, I was a kid, it was just the coolest thing. I always thought they were the coolest kids. Like, they seemed like superheroes to me. And I've always secretly deep down wished that I've done it. And I've never even tried. And I think I'd like to try tonight. And there was a stretch of minutes, I forget how long, where it was people kind of, Matt Mayer, who could do a backflip. He was a mascot in high school and college, and he trained as a gymnast, I think. He was like, so here's what you need to think, and your body's going to want to, the problem is your body's going to want to normalize, you have to keep following through, and there's people begging him not to, and then he eventually tried it, and it was really scary.
He landed in a way that, like, if you envision the worst case scenario of how somebody would land.
Exactly what you're seeing in your mind, of him coming down right at the gap of the base of his skull and his neck.
100%.
All his weight, and he's a big guy.
Yes. Worst case scenario landing, and I was like, Like when he got up, I was like just so relieved.
Yeah, I was in the tech booth. I almost started crying. I really thought I had led people to a horror. You also have to imagine. You also have to remember too. Out of those 27 people, 25 of them were people who knew each other and who had been around a long time.
Yeah.
And then there was Josh Sharp, who none of us really knew, but even he had done a bunch of comedy in North Carolina. And Murph was this dude who no one knew him.
I didn't know that. So at the time of that class, he was just new.
So that class you had to apply and you had to write an essay. Part of that was I thought it would be funny to write an essay, but part of it was also me being like, let's see. Like there were a couple people who got in who I had taught before who I wasn't necessarily, and I'm not talking bad about anybody, I won't name names, but like a couple people I can think of where if it had just been I saw their names, I would have been like, I don't need to teach them again. I've taught them enough times. Or I don't know how much they'll get out of this, but then they turn in these essays about some heavy shit or some real shit where I was like, okay, they're ready to step up. Let me try it. Murph's, I'll never forget, it came from an AOL email address, just a bunch of random letters. Murph being 4 of them, but it was like Murph and then a bunch of letters.
Oh my God.
And it just said, I gotta be a part of this. Tell me who I gotta fight. I'll outdrink anyone. I'll arm wrestle Don Finelli. And that was the whole submission essay.
And just letters?
It was just... No, it was just MURF and then a bunch of letters at AOL.com.
Oh, I got you.
And then just that one thing. I'll fight anybody. I'll outdrink anybody. I'll arm wrestle Finelli. And then we had... So before the class, we had like a month or so where I picked everybody. And I started emailing out these assignments. Just sort of like, here's some things to think about. Some of them related to improv. Some of them not. Some of them simple. Like, you know, what's a piece of art that you've seen it or taken something away from it that makes you think about your own work? People started sending quotes. I never forgot Jackie Jennings sent over a clip of when Derek Jeter, I forget if it was the playoffs or the World Series, but where there was a play at the plate and the catcher wasn't covering home and Jeter just fucking appears in a full-on sprint.
Yes, I know
and
what
it's
you
like
talk about.
And she wrote this beautiful thing about how like he just had this sixth sense in this moment. He's the shortstop. He should not be anywhere near this part of the plate. But it's a legendary play, and it was not the right thing to do. It was not the thing any coach ever coached him from Little League on up, but he knew he had to be there. And I always, like, I think about improv a lot with this, where when you really let yourself go, sometimes you just you have to follow the instinct to go, and things like that. Some of them were a little more elaborate, and some of them were like real world driven stuff. One of them being, do something that's outside of your comfort zone, write the rest of us about it. Something in the real world, do it outside your comfort zone. And the thing Murph wrote, I actually went to Will Hines and reported myself as a teacher. Because Murph wrote a thing that I can't share. And the thing with this class, people ask, but we all did swear we wouldn't. I'm probably already saying more than the social class. But Murph did something illegal that was so over the line and so over the top. And keep in mind, a human we had never met. It's a person none of us.
And he reveals this to the class.
He emails the group. Not one of us. He actually, I think I can talk about this one because he's talked about it on the Gethard show.
Sure.
He was approached on a subway platform by a woman looking to exchange money for sex. And he's like, and of course I turned it down. And then I thought, wait, the assignment. Something about a comfort zone. So he paid this woman a couple bucks and she put her hand down his pants. And I went and reported myself to Will. I was like, Will, I this is fucked up.
Yeah.
This thing happened and it's fucked up and it's because of an assignment. And I just want you to know. And if you need to cancel the class,
because of an assignment.
And he's like, well, let's see how people react. And, let's see if anybody's upset. Let's see what happens. And he played, to his credit. And not like he was dodging it, he was brushing it on the rug. But he's like, see, and a couple people in the class, one person wrote back right away and was like, hey, I don't want to be in a situation, a guy was like, I don't want to be in a situation where I feel like I have to top this for everyone else's, like, I don't want this to become a pissing contest, basically.
Right. Yeah.
And I wrote back and I was like, absolutely not. I've been figuring out how to deal with this email myself.
Yeah.
And then Murph wrote back and was like, just so everybody knows, you're going to get to know me. I've had a lot of issues with addiction. I've done a lot of things most people haven't done. I've been in a lot of situations that, God willing, you'll never have to be in. So I should have made it clear that if I'm to do something outside of my comfort zone, I have to do something very far outside of anyone else, like way outside of any of your comfort zones. And then when we all got to know Murph and you get to know his history, of course, that's true. Murph's comfort zone is just warped. Like, he's lived through too much.
Yeah.
And, and then he walks in the room and you'll remember, I don't know if you knew him. I don't know exactly when you started, Sebastian, but
I was like beginning at that time. So I like heard about the class, but I didn't see any of it.
Patrick can tell you, when Murph showed up, for the first year or so any of us ever saw him, he wore black pants, a white button-down shirt, a black tie, and he had a real long ponytail and a mustache. Like
I did meet that Murph.
He looked really specific. And all of a sudden, we were all like, who is Murph? He walks in and we're like, yeah, that's the guy getting fondled on a subway platform. It's nuts. Anyway,
oh my God,
is this what this podcast?
No.
This is not what the podcast is about.
We got to do the work. Gethard is going to give us a before and after pic from the time in his life that he's going to talk about, and we ask you to send yours to Who You Were Podcast at Gmail.
This is how far we're into the podcast. We're at the second line that we're supposed to be.
I'm so sorry. Cut.
No way, dude. I mean, I feel like we could do this
and then leave this part in where I'm saying cut all of that and let them wonder forever what it was.
And then we're going to post them on our Instagram. The handle is at Who You Were Podcast. So again, we're here with Chris Gethard, and before we like jump into the period of your life that you want to talk about, we want to ask some like context questions. Where did you live at the time? Is that where you're from?
Well, I've thought about a few different eras of my life.
Yeah.
So I have some questions for you guys, if that's okay.
Sure.
Because I have like a few different options. How big are people's moments usually? As far as, because we're talking about moments that were like active decisions that represent a shift and a change, right?
Yes.
I have a few. It's interesting. I have a few for sure.
There's been a whole spectrum. Some of them have been pretty intense. Other ones have been light. Mm-hmm. It's really whatever you feel like you want to talk about today. Like, I guess you could feel it out.
Yeah.
Because I think in life you have a few of these moments.
Yeah. You do.
So if you don't, then that's a problem, I think, that you're not growing as a person.
Yeah.
Because I've thought about it, because we haven't done each other yet. I go, what would I pick? Because there's a bunch of moments in my life where shit like changed.
Yeah. I mean, okay, I know the big one. There's a small one that I thought of that I've actually never spoken about.
Well, if you want to talk about that.
Yeah, maybe I'll do the small one as a precursor, because they kind of represent the same, in a weird way, in thinking about what you guys have asked me to do. In a weird way, what I have found is there's been a number of moments where I have actively... how would I put it? There's been a number of moments in my life that I thought about in the course of this sort of assignment, where I realized I've had a number of critical moments that were about embracing who I really am, not changing in a weird way, not about the changes I didn't make, about the times that I could have changed or hidden and opted not to, and sort of doubled down on some of the stuff that maybe made me who I am or how I grew up. So there's one that I thought of that I've never spoken about, which was a small one, which is I remembered when I joined a union for the first time. I was 21 years old. Nobody had ever heard of me. And I had a chance to pick a professional name and ditch the last name that spelled Gethard. And I remember standing, and that had always been a little bit of a plan. A little bit of a thing. And I remember getting to the AFTRA office, and I gave him my money, and I had to fill it out, and it had stage name, and I was like, no, I think I'm going to stick with it. And I had a chance when I was 21, at the beginning of everything, to have a professional name that wouldn't have been this sort of like embarrassing, weird name. And I opted back into it. And that was one that I think of, and I remember where I'm like, oh yeah, that was more impactful than I knew, because my plan as an actor was, to use my mom's maiden name, which is actually Kelly. So I would have been Chris Kelly.
Wow.
Who was later someone I taught in Level 1 Improv, and now he went on to become the head writer of SNL. So there was like almost a stretch where I was Chris Kelly, and that was kind of my plan professionally. And I just went into the office. I was like, no, I think I need to double down, which I think brings to the bigger one too, which is it
surprises me that you were ever a person that would have abandoned that.
But insecurities are, I mean, it's funny because I think for some people who have followed my work or have known me publicly, they're like, oh, that's the guy who has all these insecurities and he conquers them. But it's like, oh, but they're real.
Yeah.
They're real.
Even just hearing you talk about Murph and how much he owned, like who he was and who he had been prior to showing up, it makes me think about how much when I showed up at UCB, I just tried to like assimilate and hide as much of that shit as possible, because I just didn't have the confidence to own, who I had been up to that point, or who I was 5 years earlier, or whatever. Right. Yeah.
I think in thinking about a similar bigger moment I had, which I think I have to talk about, although a lot of people know this, but I think it was when it's one of these funny things again where retroactively, like you said, it's like that thing of like, oh, I wouldn't even think you'd have that. Going to public access changed my whole life. That's the thing that changed my whole life. Yeah. Professionally, personally, everything good since then has been because of that.
Yeah.
That was like the ultimate betting on myself moment instead of anything. And I'm telling you, like, I was with the most powerful agency in Hollywood. They were furious.
Yeah.
It marked not the end of our relationship formally, but looking back on it, they were like, right, whatever. And just completely, I was written off.
Sure.
I had just done a sitcom and it didn't go well, but they had said, all right, we're going to get you out to LA, get you more sitcom work. And I really had to take a step back. It was such a weird thing. It was just fucking weird. Pardon my language.
Sure.
And again, I think you were maybe just starting out around 2010.
Yeah, that's actually when I started, 2010.
But Patrick, you, I think a few years, were there earlier than that, right?
I started taking classes in 2009.
So right around then.
Yeah. How old were you then?
I started coming to the city to do comedy when I was 19.
Uh-huh.
And I had a couple gigs and I'd get commercials and stuff.
Sure.
But I was kind of becoming this sort of tragic figure in many people's eyes. I think it's fair to say. I don't know if you picked up on that when you were just starting out in 2009. I was regarded as, I think, by many people as maybe the best person who managed to not make it, or one of the best people who managed to just not.
How far into your career?
So I got this sitcom when I was. It was 2010, so it was the year I turned 30. So I started when I was 19, and I was like the boy wonder, pretty much out of the gate.
Wow. And
I was this college kid who showed up, and that was back in the day when people were like, he did short form in college. Oh, this kid's going to smoke us. He's done improv before. I was like the boy wonder when I was 19 and started doing Conan bits and commercials and was a writer's assistant for a show in 2004, guest wrote at SNL in 2007, submitted for Fallon, almost got hired to his original writing staff in 2009. It was just this thing. I mean, I'd auditioned for The Daily Show, submitted writing packets for Daily Show and Colbert, for SNL so many times.
Sure.
And it was like I would get really close, and I had everybody's respect. Then I finally got this job, and it was like this big, beautiful, community-wide celebration. And some of the things people said to me, like I remember a kid. What was that kid's name?
This is the sitcom.
Yeah, this is the sitcom. Like, Travis, the blonde hair. He moved to LA, worked for Funny or Die.
I know who you're talking about. I forget his last name.
He was part of that.
Starts with an H.
Hellwig.
Yep.
Yeah, nice kid.
Yeah.
Real nice kid. I haven't spoken to him in years. I hope he doesn't mind me dropping his name. But I remember him coming up to me. I think it was him, and he was like, I gotta say, man, I'm so glad you got a job, because, like, me and my friends, like, they were all in, like, practice groups at the time, and he's like, we have had conversations about how if you're banging your head against the wall, why are the rest of us doing it?
Yeah.
Because you've been one of the main guys here for years. And then I got it, and it was this big thing, and that was, like, kind of heartbreaking to hear, but kind of, like, you know, like, also pretty nice and flattering. And then, like,
did you feel like you were that funny at that time? Or because you're banging your head against the wall, are you, like,
questioning it?
Yeah. Well, that's a good question. Because you got to realize, too, like, I came up, my two best friends coming up were Bobby Moynihan and Zach Woods.
Sure. And there,
Shannon O'Neill.
Yeah,
I'm not going to be funnier than those people.
No,
like you're not going to be funnier than Bobby.
I think Sebastian just said no.
No, you're not. But it's true.
Honestly, Shannon is so funny.
But think about my three best friends.
Yeah.
You're not going to be funnier than Bobby.
Right.
You're not going to be smarter than Zach. You're not going to be weirder than Shannon. And I'm a funny, weird smarty pants. And so, you know what I mean? Like, I was around people who could do the things I did better than me. I was pretty versatile. But I knew along the way, I had started doing a couple projects that were intensely honest.
Yeah.
Which someone pointed out, Owen Burke he's an EP on the Gethard show now, but he was the former artistic director at UCB, and he knew me since I was a kid. And he pointed out to me, was it him? Or was it, I think it was Owen, or maybe John Mulaney was like, you're like more than anyone else. He's like, there's a lot of actors and character people and writers that have come out of UCB. He's like, you're really the only person to come out of UCB whose thing is that you're yourself. He's like, you're the only one who broke where you're you. You don't play characters. You don't do roles. It's like, I forget who said it. I think it was Owen. So I knew I was really honest. And I started to realize, like, I was working at a high level with these people, but it's like, it's funny. Like, there's a line in Don't Think Twice where Keegan says to my character, I was so close and they were dangling it in front of me, and if I didn't get this gig, I swear, man, I might have killed myself. And I was like, I respond to him in the movie like, oh, you mean like if you had to still just like keep living our lives with us?
Jesus.
That's not to throw him under the bus. I've joked about it with him. Bobby said a similar thing to me. That's where that line comes from. I got a creative consultant credit and Don't Think Twice. I had been a guest writer there and didn't get hired, and then they legendarily kept Bobby guessing for like over a year because of the writer's strike.
Yeah. And
then he finally gets it, and he's one of my best friends, and we didn't turn on each other like the characters in the movie did. But he's saying to me, "Oh man, I don't know." I was just like, what am I going to do if I don't fucking get this? I might as well just go fucking jump off a bridge. And I'm like, I didn't get it last year. I didn't get it last year. So I get the sitcom, show up, I'll never forget, show up at the...
I have a question before you say that. So people were in your ear, people like above you, like higher on the ladder, like telling you like you're great. Like here's advice. Because I'll tell you what, about the improv world, I was like thinking about it. I don't know who's above us that it could give people advice now.
See, that bums me out.
In New York, especially.
I hate to say that,
that bums me out.
I have friends, and like Shannon's great, and everyone's there, but when I think, I go, who do I ask for advice from?
Well, people leave so much quicker.
That's what it is. Yeah. I go, who do I ask? And then I go, I don't know who I ask advice from.
And a lot of the people who you probably would have asked, their advice is going to be go to LA because that's what they did.
Yeah. And my family's here. I don't want to go.
Yeah, I was always the same. You know that. Like,
sure. Yeah.
It's a little different for us. I always say, I remember like one of my best friends, Eugene Cordero, I remember when he moved, he was like, you going to do the move or something? I was like, well, you're from Michigan. Mm-hmm. Like New York and LA, you get to go to both places. I'm an East Coast guy. I grew up 25 minutes from where I live right now.
Yeah. I always say people outside the city, the skyline means more to us.
Yes.
Because we saw that and we go, that's where I want to fucking be.
I walk out the front door of my house, I make a right growing up, go up to my bus stop and turn around. You're standing on the side of a hill where the skyline's right there.
Yes, and that was the goal.
One artsy kid in my neighborhood. Oh. Like, nobody in my family was an artist. Nobody in my neighborhood. My next door neighbor was a fireman.
Yeah.
The site where I'm just like looking at New York like, oh God, it's so weird. This is so weird. I just feel weird. So yeah.
So there were people around to kind of...
Well, I had a couple mentors that I really value. Michael Delaney was a real mentor to me. Yeah. A guy named John Ross Bowie, who's he's on an ABC sitcom now, Speechless. He was a real mentor to me. And I always tried to do that. I think it's funny because I think your generation, Patrick, in particular, there were a lot of people who loved me, and I think a lot of people who actually really hated me because I so clearly played favorites too.
I was going to bring this up earlier. That was a thing. With parentheses, I applied, and it like.
Oh, did you?
Yeah. I'm so sorry. No.
Pat's over here fucking.
Well, we never talked about this. It was like no, we haven't. But it was like I don't know what it was, like the 7th ASP that I didn't get in at that point, and I was like, what?
How honest do you want me to be?
You can go for it, but I want Shannon put me in one like a little bit after that, and I was like,
that puts out the fire.
What a relief! Yeah,
but I played favorite. Everybody in that class, you could look at that list, and I bet there were a lot of people that were like, why were there fucking applications? Why do it?
Can I tell you one other thing? Is that I don't don't know what it was. It was your first show. It was like a Facebook page for the first show. And I posted some comment that was like, it was pretty like it was kind of grimy.
People remember me, and that class, people have this image. It's funny because sometimes UCB students will come up to me, are you ever going to teach again? I've heard these things about your classes, this and that.
Yeah.
And it's very flattering, but there were also people who actively got left out who are not fans of mine to this day because I wouldn't shut the fuck up about Don Finelli. You know what I mean? I wouldn't shut up about Jesse Lee. I wouldn't shut, I played favorites.
Now I really want to go back to, you want me to be honest?
Yeah.
Well, because here's the thing I'll say, because I saw you in one of your class shows, because I'm one of the last old school dudes who used to drop by class shows sometimes if I was killing time. And I saw you in a class show, and I thought you were really funny, but you just seemed really, really pissed off. You seemed like you had some fires to put out.
Yeah.
And then you and I became friends a few years later. It was J.D. Amato, actually. He brought your name up, and I was like, how's that kid doing? Because I saw him, and he was funny, but you were like mad. You were like on the back line, and you looked mad. And JD didn't, and you and I, he did not, nothing. He was like, you would really like Patrick. And he's like, when you saw him, he was dealing with some stuff that he's dealt with. Yeah. And you and he have actually dealt with a lot of similar shit. And I bet you'd actually be into each other. And then shortly after that, is when we did, I think the next time I saw you, I started making a little more of an effort.
Yeah.
And we got to know each other a little bit better. But my initial impression of you was like, oh, this dude is like out to get it, but in a way that's like, where I was like trying to build this communal thing. And I'd seen you, I think maybe 6 months earlier, and I was like, oh, this seems like a dude who is still throwing some fucking punches.
Yeah, I was very, very competitive, and I feel like I had a huge chip on my shoulder. I had a lot to prove.
I sensed the chip.
I mean,
we've never talked about that, I don't think. Have we?
No, we haven't. I mean, I feel like I'm still working on that shit.
Oh, me too.
Yeah.
Me too.
But yeah, you had an accurate read.
Yeah, I think, but there were people who were not happy. And there were also, I'll tell you this too, parentheses, a bunch of those people were on teams and took the class, and they got cut during the class. There was a big round of cuts during the class. And I don't think anyone in the class got on those auditions, and like 5 or 6 people got cut. And there were people in the community that were like, was
that Mr. Crime?
I think so. Yeah. I think so.
People fucking
so
hated
look at that.
People fucking hated
No, but you had that moment where I don't think anybody in Mr. Crime was one of my people.
No.
Riley maybe, but Riley didn't
sure.
apply to the class, and that was still when Riley and I have always had like a big brother little brother thing,
right?
And it was still, he was, I think, still much more of a fan of stuff I was doing than someone I don't think I ever taught Riley in a class.
I feel like it's very interesting to hear, because I remember
it was Mr. Crime got formed, none of my people got it, none of my favorites, and then a bunch of my people got cut halfway through the class with me, and there were people that were giving it a real fucking smile.
Yeah, I get that.
Yeah,
sure. They're like,
but that's because I did look out for my people.
Yes,
yeah,
always have.
So that is beautiful.
I remember being elated for that, but that team was fucking brutal. It was brutal.
I saw it a couple times. It seemed like there was some personnel, some heads butted.
Yes, I mean, I don't even necessarily mean like performance wise. I just mean like it was a lot of pressure because there hadn't been an audition in well over a year. And we were all new, and we were all scared, and it was just hard. Like, we just kind of, like, butted heads, and we were scared.
Strong personalities.
Yeah, for sure.
Strong personalities in there. That happens. There have been worse teams than Mr. Crime.
Yeah.
It's all good. Yeah.
Can I ask you a question? This has nothing to do with the podcast. When was the last time you went to, like, Harold Night or anything like that?
Harold Night I haven't been in years. I actually, a buddy of mine... I've only been to Lloyd Night once. That started kind of after I phased out. I phased out around 2012.
Sure.
For a number of reasons. Some of them related to... Sometimes people try to get me to like talk shit about UCB. I'm like, no, I'm still a UCB guy through and through.
Sure.
Yeah.
Do I have issues sometimes? Sure.
Well, that means you care.
Yeah, I do. And a lot of it was I was hitting a wall. I'd been doing it since I was 19 and I was 32. Also, it's not a coincidence I started dating the woman who's now my wife in 2012. I didn't want to do a show every Friday.
Yeah.
I wanted to do a show every Sunday.
Totally.
Wanted to get out of town for a weekend with this woman and not have to go, I can't leave until Saturday. I'm going to be back Sunday by 7. Just didn't want to do it anymore. I needed to go live a real life. So... But I actually, a buddy of mine who's a musician texted me on Sunday. He's like, hey, I'm doing monologues at ASCAT. I'm nervous. You got any advice? I was like, I'll be there. So I did it for the first time probably in like a year and a half, 2 years.
Can I tell you something?
What's that?
Shannon asked me to do Ask Cat, and I couldn't do it. And when I saw your picture, I was so pissed. I was so...
Yeah. You told me that. Told me that after the fact.
I just showed up randomly.
Gut instinct was, fuck.
That's funny, yeah.
And I don't know why.
I actually kept up with
with
the young kids. Yeah, usually when I do improv now, it's very scary because I feel like there are people sometimes... There's a little bit of a thing at the where I know that some of the students have heard of me and they're looking at me, but I'm like, I don't do this anymore.
It's a muscle thing.
And I've always been someone where I want to work hard.
Yeah.
So, not talking too bad about anybody, and there's a lot of people who are really good, but like the whole idea that you reach a certain level and then you never rehearse anymore was part of why I was like, oh, that's fine, but I think I'm going to go do stand-up because I'm removing any ego from it. I'm pretty good at improv, and I'm not going to get better without notes. So why don't I go do a thing that I know I'm bad at? Because that's where the work is. I'm not working hard. It's like when it got to a point where I'd show up for Ask Cat and be like checking my phone at 7:25 and then throwing it down and going to do the show. I'm like, this is not work. And that's not... I think that's a similar Jersey thing of like, well, if you're not working, then stop. Then you're fucking around, so stop.
Because it makes you question stuff. Because, I mean, I'm on a weekend team now, and it's like, I don't get notes, I don't rehearse, and so I go, what am I doing?
Yeah.
100%.
But I loved... it feeds me to go do that shit,
and you can still get better.
Of course.
You can hold yourself to certain standards, but you feel... I started to feel like I was a little more adrift at sea, and there also starts to be this thing, you're playing with other people who are past the point of notes, which means they're also probably all the types of people who are at a point where they can give notes and have opinions, and we're not even discussing it.
Yeah.
So it just wasn't for me anymore. I needed to go do something that felt harder and that I knew I would need to work at. Anyway, who knows?
It feels like a kind of a similar time period, at least from what I know about you, and it feels like a similar decision in a way where it's like, I'm gonna do the thing that scares me more. I'm not gonna worry about like booking sitcoms or any of that stuff. I'm gonna do the thing that scares me more.
Yeah, I mean, and it was definitely scary, definitely riskier, but more importantly, it was like, you know what? It was like all the art I've really loved has been smaller, has felt smaller and more personal.
Yeah.
And to me, sitcoms, part of why I never really locked into them is because they felt pretty impersonal. Laugh tracks and this fourth wall and separation.
Sure.
So there's just this thing of like, go to LA, a city I've had some experience with that never felt like a personal place to me. Some of that's on me. I'm not an LA hater, much, contradictory to the popular belief. I'm not an LA hater. It's just not my town. Lived there for a while in 2004. Found it very lonely. Mm-hmm. So yeah, it was like, can go probably just try to be a character actor and chase it, or I've got this weird cult thing going on, doing these shows that people are really responding to, but the only way it's going to be on TV is public access. There's a guy named Keith Bethay who was a student of mine at UCB. He'd been around forever. Really, really sweet guy. Saw him one night at McManus. He was like, dude, your show would be a really good public access TV show. Mm-hmm. I was like, thanks, dude. I was like, I grew up watching... We had this guy in Jersey named Uncle Floyd. I don't know if they got Uncle Floyd instead.
No, they don't.
He wasn't public access. He like made his own TV shows up on like the upper channels. And I always thought that like that, and early MTV felt so weird, and just like even like WOR Channel 9, like Steam Pipe Alley, and the old Howard Stern show, just these show, and like Richard Bay. Like,
you know who's taking classes now? What's his name? Oh fuck! Why is his name? Because I'm a big Howard fan. Who is the guy that was always Benji?
Oh, Benji's taking classes.
Benji's taking
I just
classes.
met him for the first time.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
He's around the training center. And
That's
shit.
Awesome.
And I seen him and I got all nervous.
Yeah, he's a good dude.
Yeah,
good dude.
Yeah. But I was a big Howard Stern fan.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, my dad dressed up as Howard Stern for Halloween when I was a kid, and my mom wore fake tits.
Awesome.
And she would walk around flashing the neighbors.
That is very Staten Island.
And I was like 8, and I was Wolverine, so we would ding dong doors, and I would be Wolverine, ask for candy, and my dad would ask my mom to take her tits out.
So dumb.
How old were you?
8, 9, something like that. And I'll never forget that shit.
But that was it. Keith, it turned out Keith worked at the public access studio. I was like, oh, thanks. And I started saying this stuff. He's like, no, I work there. He's like, I can get you a show pretty quickly.
Yeah.
He's like, if you'd want to do it, I could probably get you to the front of the line. And I went. I'll never forget walking to the public access studio for the first time, totally by myself. I had not committed to doing it. The gang from the old Gethard show didn't know what was going on. I was just curious. And I went and I saw the studio and I sat down with them. And Keith was like, showed them some press that had been written about my comedy. And they were like, we'd be really interested in having you here. We think comedy's such a big thing in New York. And if someone worked really hard, we'd want to attract other comedians. Like, it's such a thing in New York, and there's creative people, and we have all this equipment, and I just got a good vibe. And then they also, I'll never forget, showed me a wall with pictures of people, and they were all people who had been banned from the studio. Wow. And to get banned from that studio, you have to do something really crazy. And they showed me the wall of people, and I was just like, this feels nuts. This feels like UHF or like the Muppet Show. Like, this feels nuts. And I was like, it just felt small, because I remember reading the reviews of the sitcom. Like, when it went poorly, it went from all this...
How'd you feel when you got it? The sitcom.
I mean, it was... I remember when I got it, there was so much excitement. So much craziness. I remember I had dated a girl for a very long time. Off and on for 8 years. We won't name names.
Sure.
You guys might know.
Yes.
You know who it is. You know.
I even know.
Oh, there you go. But we had broken up, and I remember I called her, and she picked up the phone, and I just started crying, and I was like, I don't mean to bother you. It just didn't feel like good news if I couldn't tell you, because she had been there for so many of the hard times. And I remember I was driving on the Garden State Parkway when I got the call. I was going to visit my parents. I walked in, and I was just shell-shocked. They were like, what's wrong? I was like, nothing. I just booked this thing. They also told me, here's another key piece of this story. So, Big Lake, there's this weird thing called the Tyler Perry deal, which if you're not in entertainment, you don't know about. So Tyler Perry has had these sitcoms where they just crank them out. And the idea with this is that you don't shoot a pilot. You get a few different companies to team up and fund it, and you do 10 episodes. So the network puts in money, and then a few production companies and a syndication company. They all split costs up front for 10 episodes.
Yeah.
And then if you get picked up, they pick up 90 episodes.
Whoa. Wow.
Because 100 is the number you need for syndication.
Yeah.
So they basically make a big bet where they're like, instead of a pilot into a series, we're going to do 10 into syndication, because syndication, everybody makes money.
Yes.
Yeah.
So they told me on the phone when I got it, they were like, you have a point, a back end point is a thing in entertainment where you basically have a percentage of profits on a thing. They said, because of this point, if it gets picked up for those 90 episodes, the day it gets picked up, you'll make $2.2 million.
Jeez.
They told me that on the phone. I was 29 years old. I'd been trying comedy for 10 years, striking out.
Sure.
To the point where people like pulled me aside when I got the gig and were like, thank God you got a gig, So all of a sudden they're like, you're going to get $2.2 million. And that was in maybe June. And the public access show started, that was June, got the gig June of 2010. Big Lake was on the air August of 2010, and I was hosting a public access show by July of 2011. Wow. That's how quick the turnaround was.
Wow.
So it went from me being like, you're in the cool kids club now and you might be a millionaire, to show up at this public access studio. And even the beginning of that was so hard.
Well, what were the reviews that you were of the show?
I mean, bad.
Yeah, because you were saying
bad. And they blamed me. A lot of them, not all of them, but a lot. I had to read some hard shit about myself between the actual professional reviews and the internet comments. So I mean, people saying,
and you looked at all of them.
Yeah, people saying I should kill myself. People saying my agent should kill herself.
That stuff is so hard to not look at.
Reading stuff about my personal appearance, reading stuff about all of it. People,
I can't.
And the worst reviews though, there were some that were just brutal, and those were bad. And there were some that had almost this like sanctimonious vibe where they'd say things like we've heard through the grapevine that we've heard through like the New York comedy grapevine that Mr. Gethard is actually talented. Hopefully he gets another chance.
Oh,
you like read shit like that and you're like, fuck, man. I remember when we were promoting the show, someone asked me, because I started to realize this isn't gonna be great just because of the organization.
When?
While we were shooting 2 episodes a week.
That's a lot.
And they would be rewriting the episode. They'd be rewriting the second episode while we were shooting the first one in the morning. Oof. It was nuts. It was nuts. And they were just trying to crank them out. And and I could feel, man, this feels weird. They shot it with the idea that it would be a non-traditional sitcom that didn't have a laugh track. And then after they shot it, they said, no, we want a laugh track. And the director was like, but I didn't shoot spaces for a laugh track. You need to shoot breathing room for the laugh track to go over. So whole thing, when you watch it, feels weird. Like people are just randomly laughing while people are trying to talk. Like It just feels weird. And you can't find it today. It's very, very hard to find. But I remember while promoting it, I had kind of gotten the sense, and I'm not pessimistic, but I'm like, okay, also living the life. All of a sudden I got money.
Sure.
Like I mentioned, I was single.
Yeah.
So all these articles about me.
You feel cool.
Yeah. And life got easy for the first time,
Yeah.
Life got easy.
Were you happy?
I was happy, but like adrenaline rush happy. I would say maybe more manic than happy.
It's coke.
Well, I also got put on this weird drug called Nuvigil, which they based that fucking movie Limitless on it. No joke. I was on that drug.
Really?
It was crazy. I could memorize a 30-page script in 40 minutes. No problem.
Wait, what is that? What is that drug?
Nuvigil. It was developed as a thing to combat jet lag. But they realized it was just ultra powerful. It's like a more powerful Adderall with no side effects. They actually give it to fighter pilots when they need to fly like 14-hour missions. They'll pop this Nuvigil stuff to stay awake. It was really nuts. So I was taking this weird drug where I didn't really have to sleep, and I would stay out all night, and I got with this girl who, it was a lot of fun. And I was like sleeping a few hours a night, and then I'd wake up and I'd go memorize stuff for my TV show. And I remember, but I was going to say, like, I remember promoting it and having this sense of like, this might not go well. And the reporter for this one article, I remember I was on the phone. It was a phone interview. I was walking around to Duane Reade. I'll never forget that. The person goes, so you came out of UCB and it just has this like incredible hit rate. Mm-hmm. What are you going to do if you're the first person who misses? And I remember just stopping in the Duane Reade, like, oh my God, that's the story here. That's the story.
Wow.
You don't hear about, there's a lot of people who have missed, but there's not too many people who have jumped to something this big and flamed out this quick.
Yeah.
Right, like their own thing. Yeah.
The face of something,
right.
A sitcom job, Farrell and McKay producing it, Comedy Central's first ever sitcom. I'm replacing Napoleon Dynamite. He backed out short. There's like there's like this almost like, there's like a hero's journey myth to this thing. And this person goes, what are you going to do if you're the one who misses? And I just stopped in my tracks and I was like, that's what's going to happen. And I knew. It's like, that's probably what's going to happen. I could feel it. So then signing up for public access, it's funny because it worked out. And it's giving me this vibe, you know, people are like, you're the fucking punk rock comedian, you did it your way, and that's all, and that's great. And I hate to be sitting here like bitching about something that happened 8 years ago, but if the topic is a decision that really kind of defined who you are, it really was all the charm of it having worked out. It was hard. It was really hard. And
to make that decision was really hard.
It was really exciting and really fun, but it was also hard. And I'll be totally honest, not everybody stuck with me.
Sure.
There were some people that got out of there, and that's fine. There were people who said, you know, some of the people got on board at the start of public access. I remember a friend of mine who's still involved. Someone pulled him aside and was like, you don't want to be involved in this. This is like this dude's midlife crisis.
Wow.
Like it, and I will also say, in my opinion, the UCB community, I learned a big we had been the hot show at UCB. Uh-huh. Like they had, if I remember right, they had started putting tickets on sale on a different day than the other shows because it would jam up the website so bad.
Wow.
They started releasing the tickets. I was like, all right, everybody will just come up a few blocks, we'll make a TV show version. I go, nope. there is that thing, that sobering lesson you learn whenever you're in any tunnel vision pond, where it's like, oh, I'm not teaching anymore, and this isn't a cool thing at the place people are trying to get ahead at. They're not getting anything out of being here anymore. This is not a talking point in your improv class anymore. Were you there or not? They moved on. That's fine. Try not to be bitter about that. So we had, I was on a sitcom, and then a year later I'm doing a show where you watch some of those early episodes. There's 11 people in the audience, and they're bad. I always say it's become part of like the myth of the show, but we started it in July. We did not have an episode I was even remotely proud of until our Halloween episode. Yeah, wow. And so it was July, August, September, and all of October. It was like a solid 15 or 16 shows that ate shit with no one liking it.
When you say there were people who were like, get away from this, or there were people who like didn't, weren't necessarily on board, are you talking about like agents, managers, or are you talking about friends?
First of all, both across the board.
Yeah.
I mean, the agents were like, okay, you want to go do a public access show? Have fun.
Well, how do you have the confidence to do that then?
I grew up listening to, my brother was a punk rocker, and
sure,
I'm very lucky. I always think about that. Like, I was around a lot of art that was just kids making it. The first concert I ever went to was in the basement of a church, and it was with kids who were 3 years older than I was playing the instruments. Uh-huh. I'm also really lucky. Really, the only day job I had after college was I worked at a magazine called Weird New Jersey, which really two guys started it as a homemade fanzine.
Yeah, I know Weird New Jersey.
It was big in Staten Island.
Yeah, I love that shit.
Yeah, there was a lot of weird abandoned monastery out near Wagner College.
Dude,
abandoned hospital out at Seaview.
Like Seaview was a disaster, and then you go down. It's like literally. I went to New Jersey because there was the most haunted house, but I just couldn't find it.
Which one?
I wish I knew the name, but literally me and my sisters and my parents drove around because I forced them to go, and then we couldn't find it. We spent the whole day looking.
You remember the name? I can probably tell you how to get there.
Really?
From that job, yeah.
Because my dad goes, Jersey fucking sucks. He goes, they tell you a turn after the turn came. He would always get so angry at Jersey.
I get it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it was. I was very, very lucky that the music I liked.
Yeah.
And this job I had a few really strong examples in my life of people who made their own shit and it worked out. And every instinct I had was like, make your own, just like you got something here. Sure. And you know what it also was too? Doing Big Lake, like it wound up feeling like a very stale, disjointed sitcom. And I'm like, you don't even like them. You don't even like sitcoms. Why the fuck are you sitting around sad that you can't get one? That's ego. It's ego.
Yeah.
You know
it's also money. Also,
it's money, but money's ego too, right? It all loops around to like lifestyle. So I just really am proud of myself in that moment that I was like, I want to make a thing I'm proud of versus get a job that feels like I won a prize. And that was a real turning point in my life. That was a big risk that shouldn't have worked out. And amazingly, it has. And I don't take that for granted. It's also part of why I'm comfortable ending the show if it ends right now.
Yeah.
Because I'm still kind of calling that bluff of like, the whole point of this was to do it my way, be really proud of it. And if it's small but means a lot to the people who do find it, that's better to me than making 100 episodes of a show that's like broad with a laugh track that no one's blown away by, when immediately, as soon as I got it, I started taking this fucking weird drug Nuvigil and sleeping around. You know what I mean? Like, it was a real priority check and a real ego check.
You say that you knew a lot of people who had just done their own thing. Were there any examples within the UCB community, or are these just like outside? Because I feel like when I have that instinct, I'm like, this is wrong because I don't know that many people who, like it's scary to me because I'm like, well, what about like, what if I, am perceived as blank, or I'm not like perceived as this or that, right? Or whatever. Yeah.
I always had that thought too for years, dude. For years. I'd do these weird shows. We did a show where comedians boxed and we filmed it and screened it. Everybody, Amy Poehler came to that show. I remember being like, oh my God, no, Amy Poehler's coming. She's going to think I'm so weird. Did the paintball show. I'm like, everybody's going to think I'm so weird.
Yeah.
Anthony King finally sat me down and was like, you're weird.
Yeah.
You're weird. And that's why the Chris Gethard show started. I was like, I want to host a talk show. I'd been doing a storytelling show. He's like, fine, but don't put on a shirt and tie. Everybody does that. You're weird.
Yeah.
Take one night a week or one night a month. Do all your weird shit there. People like your weird shit. Own it. Make that part of it, you know? So as far as the examples, if I'm being honest, I don't want to sound like an old man. There's too many conversations about UCB that are like back in the day. I can say that one of the reasons I was really comfortable there when I showed up and I was 19 is because it reminded me a lot of going to punk shows as a kid. I think as it's grown and become more successful, it doesn't quite have that anymore. No. It's got a lot other things going for it and a lot of things that I helped build and that I'm proud of. But it you know, there were, and I will say too, there were a lot of people there who had been in bands. The guy I mentioned before, John Ross Bowie, I knew him because I was a fan of his punk band when I was in high school. I actually started, he used to run the classes. The classes were sold out when I signed up for level 1. He called me, he's like, told me his name. I was like, wait, are you the bassist from Egghead? And he was like, yeah. I was like, I have your 7-inch. I loved your guys' fans. And he was like, all right, okay, don't tell anybody your class starts Sunday. He snuck me in. It was so small. But that was also back then. When I started, he was like, the level 1s are both sold out. There were 2 level 1 classes. They were sold out. Next one's not until October. I was like, dude, this was May. I was like, man, I'll be back in school. I wanted to do this over the summer. It would have set the whole path of my life would have started a year later if he didn't slip me in. So I'll be honest and say, I don't know who the examples were. As far as the actual things taking place on stage, I don't know if there were so many, if I'm being honest.
Sure, yeah.
Because I think the track I was seeing, you know, even my friends, we'd make our own shit, but then when you go, you jump. Zach's on The Office. Bobby's on SNL.
Yeah.
You know, Lennon's doing her shows. Like, people build their own shows and pitch them, but it goes down a traditional track. But I do think that I always felt comfortable at UCB because it didn't feel too far away from the church basement, the fucking VFW hall, the tiny little shitty space you show up where it's like, these people barely know how to play their instruments, but this fucking rules, you know?
Yeah. There's an energy to it that,
And I think I was, maybe just because of my background with the music I knew, I think I was always pretty uniquely positioned to grab onto it in that sense. And not patting myself on the back, other people have told me that I've been an example for them since then, and I'm proud of that.
Yeah.
Of course.
So there's other people. I think I saw some stuff there and some potential there. Not to say nobody ever did their own thing, but they eventually would move on to pretty traditional. They'd get the hype from it and move on.
Yeah.
They'd get all the spotlight, and then they'd be in that track where now they had a manager and agent. Now they're pitching shows. I think I was maybe the first person to be like, yeah, you know what? I'm actually going to ignore all their advice and just double down and triple down and quadruple down on this crazy fucking thing.
I feel like when I just wanted to do improv because I was just like blown away by what was going on. And then by the time like maybe I had been on a team for like a year, I was like, seeing all these people do these other things, I was like, I need to be doing this now.
And I've had so many like that too. I don't want to talk like this is so many years of trial and error.
Yeah.
Keep in mind, this all started after a solid decade,
right?
Yeah.
Of trying to do it the way everybody else was and it not working.
Who do you think you would be had you not made that decision?
I thought about it. It's funny because sometimes people said to me like, "Oh, what if Big Lake did get picked up?" And I'm like, I'd be that. And the other big one is people are like, because I think I came pretty close to getting hired at SNL, and then I just fucked it up so bad. My packet was so bad. I regret it. I know exactly. Now that I've had a show where I accept packets and read them, I'm like, I see every place that I fucked up, and I'm like, oh my god, so dumb. Anyway, though, but people always say that, and I'm like, I think if I got either of those jobs, those were the two closest things, and they really fucked with my head. But if I had gotten either of them, looking back on it, thank God I didn't. I think I would have fallen off the wagon. Honestly, is what would have happened. I think it would have become about pressure and girls and drugs.
You know, Sebastian and I always talk about this. We're
really?
like almost scared of it in a way because we both
Are you sober too?
No, but I used to, I'm from Staten Island. It's like a lot of pain pills and shit like that. And I did a lot, and I got away because it was a point where I was like, either I have to stop doing these, or my parents are gonna find out, and I'm gonna have to go away.
Yeah.
So and honestly, that's when I started doing comedy.
Yeah.
Because I said I just need to focus all this energy somewhere else. And it's sad because I don't talk to anyone. I just cut ties with everyone.
Yeah.
And I have friends that died because they all made that next jump to heroin.
Yeah.
And so I'm not sober, but I don't fuck around, you know?
Yeah.
I'm pretty good with I drink 2 drinks, I smoke a little weed, that's it.
Yeah.
I'm not doing it, but no, yeah, so that shit's...
But that pressure gets to you.
And in my head, so I'm I love Farley so much. And as a kid, I always knew I wanted to do comedy, and I thought that would be me.
Yeah.
I'm going to do it, and then I'm going to die.
Yeah.
And I'm in therapy now, and we talk about it, and I stopped watching him a lot because I go, that's not going to be me.
Yeah.
I'm going to be me, and I'm going to have my own path, and I'm not going to sabotage. And so there is this fear, because I do hope one day to be successful and shit like that. But I always say, it's going to happen for me when I'm ready to be that.
And I was just thinking that 2007 SNL, I wasn't ready. Even the sitcom, I don't think I was totally ready.
Yeah, and I don't mean comedically, I mean emotionally.
As a human.
Yes.
And then 2012, well, no, after the sitcom, that's the thing. The sitcom, I kind of proved that I was there. And I remember so well my agents being like, we'll get you out to LA, pilot season coming up. You're in the club, something else is going to stick right away.
Yeah.
And it was the first time I was like, I am ready, but I don't want it. And I had an experience where I got to see what it is. I didn't love how I behaved.
Sure.
Yeah.
I didn't love, and again, that thing of if I'm going to read bad reviews about myself, this is echoing shit I think about every sitcom I watch. And I don't have anything against people who do like sitcoms or want to work on them. I don't. Never did. And even now, it's funny. It was nothing really happened I look back and realize I wasn't ready. And when things happened, I was ready. But I'm not kidding. I mean, if you came to that public access station on a Wednesday night, about 10 p.m. between 2011 and pretty much through the end of 2014, this was not some fucking thing where I just showed up and hosted the show.
Yeah.
I rolled up in my car, opened the trunk.
Yeah.
It was full of fucking trash.
Yeah.
And I'd have a big bag of cables over this arm. I'd have the stand for our banner in that arm. The banner itself that had the name of our show that I spray painted on would be hanging off my neck. I'd be dragging a bag of fucking props. I'd have and half the time it's I'm dragging a bag of wiffle bats and dildos. And it's and then I'd show up and I'd make shit where I'm no, this is what I want to make. And almost no one is seeing it. Sure. And no one cares enough to even write about it. But I'm looking at it, I'm this is the show my brother and I would have liked when we were fucking pissed off 15-year-old kids.
You went back to who you were.
Exactly.
Yeah, I get that. And it's it felt like you were working. It almost feels like blue collar compared to this industry world and shit like that. Bernie Mac always said, you're funnier riding the bus.
Yeah, I think it's true.
I love that quote. And it just means you just got to be a person.
Yeah. Yeah.
I have a question about JD. JD's the director of your show.
Yes.
Now, did you? I don't know if he had credits, but how did you know that he was the guy?
Well, it's an epic tale. I'll try to keep it human. Sometimes there's these weird. This one sounds pretty mythic because it is. So we did a thing with the Gethard show where we had this idea. This was in 2009 or 10. No, yeah. Oh no, it was. We launched it January 2011. This is an idea that right now is going to sound, everybody's done some version of that. But keep in mind, this was January 2011, where I rented an RV. And the whole idea was Twitter had just started relatively new, and we did the whole Diddy thing, which I think was an early Twitter success story for the idea that I actually got through to Diddy. So Twitter was a big part of it, and people from outside of New York were communicating with our show. So I wanted to embrace that. So I rented an RV. Whole idea was, let's just go on Twitter and say, where should we go? And there's certain dates. There were theaters around the country that we let pay us for shows to pay for the whole thing. So it's we're doing a show in North Carolina. We got to be in North Carolina by this day. But in between then and then, You tell us where to go. Follow us. Here's the hashtag. Made a little map where you could track the RV.
That's
if
awesome.
we're near you, we'll come hang out with you. January 2011, that was a big swing. You know, like there's people have done that since in much better versions of it. There's money behind it, but it's a big swing. And needed some video guys to help chronicle it. There was a guy named Jonathan DeMuth who did a lot of really, really great shit in the Gethard stage show. And he was down to come. And he like shoot fast, edit fast, but it was just too much. We wanted to put out a video or two every day from a moving bus. No Wi-Fi. 2011, you couldn't get a bus with Wi-Fi.
Yeah, of course.
So it's all off. We had to plug phones in and upload to YouTube off fucking phones. Then we're driving through deserts where the phones don't even always work. So we needed someone else to come in and help shoot and edit and produce it. And Finelli had just started coaching a group called Jump on 3.
Yeah.
And it was kind of like, they were kind of like my grandkids in a way. Where it was like, I taught a class that led to this group called Dreadnought. That was a bunch of my favorites. And then Finelli started coaching this group Jump on 3, who was really like, we like what you guys are doing. JD was a part of that. So Finelli was like, there's this kid who's young and hungry, and he's weird, man.
Yeah.
He's got a chip on his shoulder just like yours.
Yeah.
So Finelli put us in touch, and JD came on the bus. Then on top of that, at one point in the bus, you know, that project was a really massive failure. The UCB, Ian Roberts has always been a champion of mine. I really love Ian. Ian has always, he heard about it. He's like, I'll never forget. He called me up. He's like, I want to help. He's like, you're doing a bunch of shit that's making our theater stay relevant. This is fucking cool. So UCB Comedy was just getting started, and he convinced them. I don't know if anybody knows this. They bought like a sizable amount of equipment for UCB Comedy way earlier than they planned and just gave it to us.
Wow.
I think like $20,000 worth of shit.
Wow.
Oof.
That they were like, listen, we're going to build a production company anyway. Let's just do it through this and we'll produce this thing and maybe pitch it. So then we started feeling pressure though, because, you know, people who are like our benefactors and our mentors are watching all these videos, and it just, no one cared, man. Like no one was watching it. The videos like took us a long time to figure out what they were going to be. It was bad. And, I started really overdoing it in an effort to try to make interesting shit happen on these buses. And I really annoyed the shit out of Will Hines and Shannon O'Neill in particular. We wound up having some big fucking fights.
Sure.
And at one point, Will physically pushed me off the bus on the side of a highway in Texas. And this is real. JD convinced me to use, we had this little like mini taser thing, and I used it on him. He's like, fuck, I'm so fucking tired of you.
Yeah.
He just looked at Shannon and nodded, and he pushed me off the bus, and JD jumped off the bus with a camera. And this was not staged. They really got pissed, and then they drove away.
Wow.
And JD and I spent this 2 days. I mean, we spent the whole day wandering down the side of a highway, and someone eventually on Twitter saw it, picked us up, brought us to Waco, Texas. I forget if it's Baylor. Is it Baylor that's in Waco? I think it's Baylor University or Butler. Baylor, I think. It's Baylor.
Yeah.
We broke into their gym, and so I could take a shower. I hadn't showered in days.
Wait, I remember seeing the footage of you getting kicked off the bus, but I didn't know about the 2 days. And, yeah.
We wandered into this weird fucking, there was like this weird, I'd still to this day, dude, there's like a big giant radio tower and a little building next to it. And we saw it in the distance. We walked for like an hour and a half in the Texas heat. We finally get to it. We go inside. We're like, hey, wait, do you have a bathroom we could use? And it was just this weird thing where this guy just had all these like spark plugs and shit everywhere. Like it looked like fucking something out of the Wizard of Oz. Broke into the shower at Baylor. We wound up getting a Greyhound bus to Austin for our next show. I just spent 2 days with him, and we've just been really bonded ever since. And just the way he got shit done on that project, I was just like, man, this dude, his brain is not exactly like mine, because I'm like a very manic creative person. He's somebody who gets shit done. But I realized we were such a good match because his instinct, he never said no. If I was like, we should do this or that, his instinct is never to say no. It's to be like, that's not possible. This is, and he like inches it back into like this is the closest thing that to what you want to do that obeys the laws of like time and space.
Yeah.
And I just realized it was a really good match, and it was just kind of a really good thing. So then when Parentheses started after that, he was in there, and Noah and Drew were in there. And I asked JD, do you know how to run a television studio? And he was like, yeah, which later turned out he took like one class under the NYU.
Right.
He's the master. Dude, you'll never meet anybody better than JD at Amato at keeping a straight face while claiming, like, he is the best at looking someone in the eye and being like, 100% God. When we were on Fusion, there were outright conversations where they'd be talking to him about, like, so when you send the tapes to our satellite, you need to do it with this and this, and the frequency should be blah, blah, blah. He's like, yeah, of course, totally standard stuff. And then he's literally, like, writing it on his phone under the table so he can Google it later to see what the fuck they even are talking about. He's the best at that. And it's just been a good match.
Yeah, the reason I ask is because I feel like when I met him, I was like, this dude is, like, you can just kind of tell, you know? Like, you can just kind of tell. You're just like, he is different in a way that's like, it sounds corny, but just like special or something like that. Like, you're like, he's just got a creative mind. And even watching him on Herald Night, it's like he's thinking differently.
He was never destined to be an improviser. But if you watched the shows he was in, a lot of times those shows, all of a sudden you'd be like, wait, this has been like one scene with 17 other scenes folded inside of it. And some of them are supposed to be in black and white, and somehow I know that. And you're like, oh, right, because JD's in this show. Somehow, he's just got a similarly fucked up brain.
Yeah.
So if you, say you have to do something else.
Which I am in that current state where I'm not sure what's going on right now.
What interests you at this point? Like, I feel like in terms of just like risk taking or something that is like punk rock, like how do you do something like that again, or do you do something like that again?
Well, it's tough because I'm married now. Mm-hmm. So it's one thing to be Mr. Punk Rock when you're like living in a bedroom in Woodside, Queens with no closet. And then I upped my game to that place where I lived with Phil, where I was still living in a weird basement.
Yeah.
That was like the weirdest apartment building.
It was so fun, but also the weirdest apartment building anyone's ever seen. Yeah. Many people who saw that apartment have told me it's the strangest place they've ever seen.
It was like a castle, but it was like built in the 70s probably.
Yeah.
And it had this weird like iron gate with
everything was weird green marble. It was definitely owned by the mob. 100%. We paid it. There was no lease. We paid in cash.
It was cash?
It was really weird.
That's
it was definitely in Greenpoint.
Of course.
You can guess which mob it was. It had to have been. They had a weird garage, and they had a driveway and a garage, and I asked them if I could rent it. And they were like, no, never. And I was like, they're just giving me money. And then they told us never to try to open the garage, and there was a door off of our kitchen, and they said, do not ever try to open this door. Don't ever try to open this door. So
don't ever try to open the garage.
I love those people.
I don't know what was going on.
See, but that's who I want to rent from.
Oh, it was nice while it lasted. We had fun in that apartment too, though. That was that summer of 2012 where I kind of lost it.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
So you were having fun.
Yeah. You were around for a little bit of that.
Yeah.
Me and Phil were staying up all night.
Were you?
Oh, yeah. We were having fun.
I forget. Really? I came over there. What we were watching was it like, I don't know what show, but I was going over there to watch a show. You guys like had... I don't know what it was, but it definitely wasn't like, I wasn't part of that party. I was like going over to watch a show at like 8 p.m.
We had a little back porch that we'd always barbecue. People were always coming by. I was single again. It was a crazy summer. Good. I fell a little too hard into Adderall, though. It was okay. It was okay. I got out of it. It's fine.
Well, that's good.
But yeah, if it ends... It's funny. Now, I'm lucky because my wife is an actual punk rocker. She's a musician who's like toured and put out multiple albums of her own, all DIY stuff, so she gets it. It's a crossroads. There's a few things I think about. Like, one is lifestyle-wise, I'm 38 now. Even when I had the idea for the Gethard show, I was 29. And, just speaking frankly, there's a certain financial level of stability that I've been enjoying the past few years. Like, I own a place. It's a one-bedroom co-op, but I still own it.
Sure.
So there's definitely a part of me that's like, that, but I do try to think about it where I'm like, you know what, like, money is money, and if the TV show goes away, I make enough touring at this point, and there's some other means at this point, podcasting and whatnot, where I'm like, I'll be very comfortable. I might have to leave New York and go live someplace. I don't think I'd go to LA, but I might go to like upstate or something.
Yeah.
Go live in the woods a little far away and just do my podcast and then tour around doing stand-up a whole bunch. Like,
sure.
Seems like a nice, simple life. There's some appeal to that for me. Maybe I'll get this out of my system and go do another thing, and then, then creatively, outside of the financial side of it, where I'm like, yeah, it would be a hit, but I could survive, and I think I'd actually be fine with less money, be smart with the money I have made about how to try to make it last. Creatively, it's tough because, initially I was feeling some panic as I realized, that the show was probably coming to an end, which is not decided yet. Which is also, something that's been something I've kind of really said, it has been as much of a choice as some writing on the wall. They could take it away from us, but even if they don't, it might be the end. But I'll stop rambling. Like, creatively, there's one part of me that's like, it'll be a failure. I'll be so embarrassed. It never quite got where I wanted it to go. I thought it could have done some real damage. And then I take a step back and I'm like, what the fuck is wrong with all of us as creative people? Because it'll be 47 episodes of it on cable between 2 networks. Then if you count the public access years, over 200 episodes of a show with my name on it.
Yeah.
47 of them on cable. 27 of those on a national platform that's for real. Like, Fusion was real small. Yeah. They were good to us. They were small, scrappy, hard to find. True TV is a big fucking thing. Everybody sees that. Not everybody's done that, let alone with a name on it. Like, so much UCB talking this. I think I'm the only show that's gone directly from... The Chris Gethard show is a UCB show. I think Rana and Beverly had a BBC show out of L.A. I think I'm the only UCB New York show, and one of the only UCB shows ever to actually... Like, say what you will about my show. My show's really weird. It looks like a UCB show. Like, it looks like a fucking late-night Del Close marathon show. Like, it got that, so I'm proud of it. And then I'm also like, so I've had 200 episodes of my show. I had an HBO special. I'm about to publish my 3rd book. Maybe I can stop beating the shit out of myself. Maybe I can stop beating the shit out of myself. Because I have this view of like, fuck, I'm failing. And then there's also a part of me that's like, no, I've actually done a lot of stuff and none of it's blown up. But part of why it's never blown up is because I've insisted on trying to do it the right way. And I think I'm totally fine with that compromise.
And I think long term, that's the kind of stuff that people look back on and really value. At least that's the kind of stuff I look back on and really value. It's just someone who's being authentic, trying to be authentic, as opposed to like, and then nothing against this, but it's like, people in suits and the people who sort of run the entertainment industry aren't creative, so they're just trying to fit a mold.
Yeah, and then even some creative people, I get very concerned. And I'm not trying to talk bad, but I've had conversations, have some friends of mine who come back from LA and they're very zen. Mm-hmm. The success they have found out there has put out some fires, some demons, and that's beautiful. Yeah. Then you have some people who come back from LA where if they're talking to you and someone walks into the room, all of a sudden it's this because they're on something bigger, and it's like, well, I never became that, and I'm pretty proud of that. And I also think, I look at my TV show and I'm like, so many of the people who worked on it till the end were working on it when it was at public access. Some of them even at UCB. And I think they're all going to be okay. Even a year or two ago, I think if the show ended, I don't know if everybody would have like found their next gig. Yes. But at this point, anybody who's going to doesn't need me to do it anymore. They're all like battle tested. And even though our show never blew up, I think a lot of them have it on their resume now, and it's known enough now that people look at it and they're like, oh, that means you can make weird shit cheap. And that goes a long way for some of our production staff. Some of our writers, I think, people will look at them and go, okay, we'll have a meeting with you because that show's so weird, but it's always done shit that's pretty progressive. So I took care of my people. I did it the right way.
That was one of the coolest things I always thought about it.
Go do something else.
When it went, I was just like, oh, all these people have jobs, It
was like a little economy.
Yeah.
Well, like look at Noah and Drew. They were going to get jobs. They're really talented people. But it maybe happened a year or two before it would have. And they got to work on something that's maybe a little bit more something that they liked than like headhunter gigs that they wouldn't have. And little things like that where I'm like really proud of it. Like JD's a showrunner of a TV show. Yeah. He's 30. I think he just turned 30. He's 29 or 30. I think he's 30. He just turned 30, I think. He's my fucking best friend in the world. I should know that, but he and I, it's all through age or through work, not shit like that. But I think anybody who stuck with me will say I did right by them. There's been a few people who will say I haven't, But honestly, I always got in the trenches and at least tried, you know?
Yeah.
And until I never walked away from anybody who's willing to like stick with me and work hard and also try to do it the right way in their own right, and you know, be a team player. And I just am proud of it. So I don't know. My wife, I'm always like, when the show gets canceled, I tell my wife, I want to move up to the Hudson Valley, go to some town where you can get like a bunch of acres of land.
Yeah.
Nobody will fucking like bother us. Nobody will bother me. I'm like,
you could take the train. No one's gonna come.
Yeah, and I take the train now, but sometimes people buy, and I don't want to complain. It's very, very nice. But
of course,
sometimes it crosses the line where like the one that bugged me out the most was I was once eating in a diner by myself, and then someone tagged me in a picture on Facebook, and I looked, and it was a picture of me eating in that diner.
No.
And I was like, what the fuck? Like, what the fuck? It was like scary. It was actually, I was like, had to talk to my shrink about it, because I used to deal with all this paranoid shit. I was like, when I was really losing it mentally, sure, I was very, very paranoid. And she was like, you're freaking out right now because you're feeling the same feelings you felt then, but they're real now. It's okay. Like someone's actually taking secret photos of you. You're allowed to react to that. The problem back then was not that you felt that way. It was that it wasn't rooted in anything. By all means, react to what's really happening.
Sure.
So my wife is always like, bullshit. Like, if we put you in the woods, you'd fucking lose your mind because you have to be creative relentlessly. Yeah. But
I think the story you told in the beginning about your name it does encapsulate
it kind of
your career.
It keeps looping back around to that. Of like, no, I think I just got to keep being this guy for better or worse.
That story is beautiful too.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Yeah, I sometimes ask myself, I'm like, what would I be working on if I didn't care about what anybody thinks of me and if money wasn't an issue?
That's all you got at the end of the day.
Yeah.
It's so confusing because like I'm at the point where I need money. I'm like, I struggle every month to make rent.
Yeah.
And it's like I get a gig here and I'll like, great, let me try to like squirrel this away and like try to, I got this now, I could live for 3 months.
Well, dude, I have something to say to you then that you'll roll your eyes at hard.
Yeah.
But that I really mean is like, I remember that so well. And for me, the guy who I would always vent to, my guy on that was Bobby.
Uh-huh.
I lived in Jersey, Bobby lived in Westchester, and then I moved to Queens. He was still living in Westchester.
Yeah.
And we were seeing people move on. We'd be at the back booth at McManus.
Uh-huh.
I'd be like, that person got a fucking writing gig. You're so much fucking funnier than them. You know what I mean? Like, he'd be like, I know. We'd be stressed out. We all, let's not bullshit. We all have conversations like this.
Sure.
You vent, you stress, you have the handful of people you trust. And it felt so fucking grim and so scary and so depressing. And I can say with total honesty right now that if I could take a time machine back and sit in that booth with him again when things were at that level, I would do it in a heartbeat. I wish I knew that was all those feelings of fear and stress and why the fuck isn't it working out? Why is it working out for other people? What don't I get? How come people are telling me I'm the funniest one on stage and I'm not the one getting the fucking calls? That was all so real. And I'm not saying it wasn't real back then, but that feeling concurrent to that all I did was stay up late and work with fucking geniuses and figure my own shit out, fall on my face, and then go out to a fucking bar and order a cheeseburger with this fucking like beautiful, talented person and vent. Concurrent to how real all the stress was, I didn't realize then that it was the golden era of my life as a person, especially as a creative person. So that's the only other thing I can say to that is I hear you and I've been there.
Yeah.
And it was as real for me as anyone. From my perspective, you're also somebody who showed up and got a whole bunch of fucking hype fast. So you're like ahead of the curve in my eyes. But I have the fucking historical perspective of being a fucking almost 20 years in. But I will say, don't forget that it's also the best. Because the number one thing we all forget that I wish I had learned earlier is we have all these feelings. And we think we're going to accomplish something that erases them. It's not. It's bullshit. The gig doesn't solve your problems. Your problems are the reason you're doing this it's not going to go away. You're not going to solve it with success.
Sure.
In the same way that, like you were saying, how you had a thing with painkillers.
Yeah.
And this has replaced it.
Yeah.
Something else will replace it, but something else will also replace the stresses. And that growth happens separate in a weird way, because no gig solves you. It just doesn't. Gotta learn to enjoy it now.
Gethard, thank you so much for doing this show, man.
Sorry I became old man Gethard.
No, dude, that was great.
I need some of that shit. I fucking call. I called my bank account the other day. $130,
dude. I got stories for you,
dude. And I go fuck, and then thank God something came in the mail. And
where do you live now?
I live in Bed-Stuy with my girlfriend.
You do?
Yeah,
that's nice.
So that keeps me so grounded.
Right?
Yeah. It's like
a lifeline.
Yes.
Yeah.
She doesn't know that.
She
don't knows that.
No, she has no idea I struggle emotionally and fall apart every day.
She knows that shit. I feel like I'm like, they say like it adds years to your life. I'm like, no doubt having like a partner that.
Yeah.
I mean, I was like,
please, yeah.
I was, I'm still trying to be a healthy person, but it's like a real game changer when it comes to that.
Sorry I didn't let you into that class. In retrospect, I probably should have.
No, honestly, it's like good, it's like everything is good for you, like everything is good for you, Like I was...
Gethard actually emailed me. He goes, I heard about you if you want to join this class. He goes, I got one spot between you and Pat.
He's like, I heard you're in Staten Island taking a lot of pills. And we could use it.
I could really use an addict from Staten Island.
Dude, I would take the bus to Bay Ridge and snort a pill in the fucking Burger King.
Really?
Yeah. Dude, it was...
Knew some guy selling out of a Burger King?
And yeah, he would meet me at the Burger King and he would smoke... The one dude would be smoking pills in the bathroom. It was... That's my own episode.
Yeah, we gotta. Well, actually, like I was thinking about it, and I was like, we gotta have somebody do Sebastian and I at some point, and I was like, you would be the perfect person to do that.
It would get really
it
fast.
It could get fucking crazy.
My mother could never hear this shit because she would just die.
They'd have to be separate though.
Yeah. Oh, I think so.
Or it would have to be like a 4-hour long episode, because some of the stuff you and I have discussed. You've been through some legendary times.
I mean, I guess I think like that's why it's hard. I think it was hard for me to be authentic because it's just like, it's a different world from people who start becoming students at UCB. Like I just couldn't. Sure. I just had to hide that shit. I thought, but then when Sebastian, people like him showed up, I was like kind of jealous because I was like, oh, he's just fucking who he is.
Yeah.
Well, because I thought in my head, I'm like, this is easier. These are, no offense, I was like, these are all the losers. I went to UCB. I goes, these are all the losers. Fuck this, I'll just be me. I'm not doing pills. Yeah, I run this shit.
Yeah. Well, I'm actually.
I hate to sound like that.
No, I will say, not talking bad. One of the things to me that I miss that maniacs used to wander in.
Yeah.
That's what you're talking about. Not just to make it work, but...
My parents got me a UCB class because they like, you need something.
To save your life.
Yes.
Dude, have you ever talked to Finelli?
No.
Talk to him.
Really?
Talk to Finelli on this podcast.
The third tape shirt boy. We got to get him on here.
Dude, talk to him about his... Bring him in. He can talk whatever he wants about. But tell him I said, at least, even if he doesn't want to talk about it on the show, talk to him about his night in Philadelphia.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's the reason I love Dom Finelli as much as I
did. My family essentially forced me to move. I had a sister in New York and a brother in New York. I was 19. And my family just was like, get out there. Because there was...
You were going to wind up in jail, right?
I mean, I would not be alive. If I had to move to New York, I would not be alive. There's a lot of, if I hadn't done blank, I would not be alive.
Yeah, sure. We all share that in common.
Yes. I know. I see people from Staten Island and they're like, you made it out. Yeah. That's the feeling.
As far as Brooklyn.
Yeah, I made it to Brooklyn, which it's just an emotional different place.
Yes, it is.
It's so fucked up.
But I love talking about that too because, again, it's going to sound like shit talk. This kind of just is like, it's great that UCB is what it is now, and it's great that people can get so fucking good. But now it's like everybody's done 4 years of college improv and probably 2 years in high school, and then also was the best improviser in Kansas City for 5 years before they even moved here.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I think there's a great value to, oh no, I came here because my family thought I was going to die. Or because I was smoking fucking...
No, I never smoked them.
Crushing up pills and snorting them in a Burger King.
Well, that's what... You feel it fast.
Oh yeah, it gets right in the bloodstream.
Right up the right, dude. I could still taste it in the back of my throat.
God, I don't even want to know.
I was living at my buddy's house, sleeping on a couch on Holton and North Avenue in Milwaukee. And if you go there sometime. I was sleeping on a couch. My friends were. It was basically like an apartment that was like half growing weed, like with lights and shit. Like it was like
a grow operation.
Yeah. And we would. I moved here with the turntables, but I had like my turntable set up there, and like there were like guns in it. Like there were frequently guns in this place. It was like not okay. So it was good that I got out of there.
Oh, I'm glad we all.
Yeah,
but seriously,
we all did it.
We wanted you to come back and do us.
I would love that.
That would be awesome.
One at a time. Oh no, maybe at once.
Whatever. We'll talk.
Let me think. Yeah, I would love to.
You do that?
Yeah,
that'd be amazing.
That'd be awesome, dude.
Let's do it.
All right.
It always feels insane in this for this podcast to go back and be like, follow us on blah blah blah. You know what I mean? Like,
don't even worry about it, everybody. It's fine.
Just email us your before and after pic at whoyouwerepodcast@gmail.com. Follow us on Instagram at whoyouwerepodcast to check out the before and after pics of everybody who does the show. I'm Patrick Noth on Instagram, and Patrick Noth with a 0 on Patrick Noth with a 0 on Instagram, Patrick Noth on Twitter. Sebastian,
you can follow me on Instagram. I got 4 photos.
Sebastian doesn't fuck with social media, but I try to get him to plug it every time.
That's Sebastian Canelli. If you want to follow me. I'll follow you back. I don't give a fuck, or I'll forget to follow you back.
Gethard, do you have anything to plug? You want to plug?
Yeah, I want to plug that one of Sebastian's 4 photos is him snorting a mixture of laxative and Tylenol.
There was, I swear to God, my boy had to put a picture of me snorting like with a line of coke right in front of me, a fat line, and I go, "How dare you do that?" I'm friends with my godmother on Facebook.
God.
He put it on Facebook?
He put it on Facebook and tagged me and tagged Coke in the picture.
There's like a Coke fan page.
These are the people you rolled with back in the day.
Of course. These were my family.
Gethard, we really appreciate you coming on, man.
Thank you guys for having me. It was really fun.
Thank you for listening to Who You Were. Please subscribe, rate, and review. Guest before and after pics on Instagram at Who You Were Podcast. Send your before and after pics to whoyouwerepodcast@gmail.com. Follow us on Twitter at Who You Were Podcast. This podcast is produced independently. If you'd like to support it, please visit patreon.com/Patrick Noth. Thanks for listening. Thanks for listening.